Tristen Law Show. If it's your first time here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Tristen Law, semi-retired pro wrestler and your host. Today, I want to take you on a journey, my journey, through how WWE became so much more than just wrestling for me. Growing up in New York City in the 90s, wrestling wasn't just entertainment, it was life. Growing up in a Jamaican household, we had a certain culture. And for me, pro wrestling added an extra flair to that culture. At just 5 years old, I was captivated by my grandfather watching larger-than-life characters like The Undertaker, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Hulk Hogan on his TV. Back then, it was colorful, it was corny, but for me as a kid, it was perfect. But as I grew, something incredible happened. Pro wrestling grew with me. By the time the Attitude Era hit, it was loud, rebellious, and unapologetically edgy, just like me as a teenager. In this episode, we're going to explore how pro wrestling became a part of my DNA, how WWE's moments turned into memories, and why WWE, once again, is must-watch TV today. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Stick with me, and let's dive into how WWE became more than pro wrestling for me, and maybe for you too. This is my love letter. So, what made the Attitude Era stand out? Let me switch another screen here. What made the Attitude Era stand out? And why do many fans still talk about it? When you look at the Attitude Era as a teenager, it fit the world and how the world was at the time. The world was just so edgy, right? I remember growing up as a kid in the early 90s, and you couldn't even use a word like bitch on the television. You couldn't use that. And then TV started getting a little bit more edgy, and you were able to, I'll never forget, I was watching WPIX, Channel 11 in New York City. And I remember, and it was a random Sunday, I was watching the TV with my grandfather, and I heard somebody say ass on TV. And I'm like, wait a minute, we can't say ass. And I've never heard ass on TV. At that point, it's like, that's when I felt like the world was starting to change. Because a couple of years later, when you go to the Attitude Era was edgy. It was just like the world. Pro wrestling was fitting pop culture. You had so many different moments in the Attitude Era that were edgy, like Vince McMahon getting his convertible with cement in it by Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then you'd even have different things like Vince McMahon having his daughter kidnapped by The Undertaker. Think about that, right? And looking at something even more edgy at the time, D-Generation X, which was one of the best groups in the WWE at the time. They were the ones that kind of led the way for this attitude movement. They went to WCW at a show in Atlanta, Georgia. At that time, that was just something that you didn't do. That was just so much of an edgy programming. And for me, as a teenager, I was looking to find out who I was. In the late 90s, 1999, 1990, I didn't know who I was. But you know what? I knew that I was pro wrestling. There are moments in the WWE such as Shawn Michaels achieving the boyhood dream. And his boyhood dream was winning the WWF at the time championship. And we all had a dream at that time. And as a little boy, I would look at myself and go, why can't I achieve a dream like that someday? And that resonated deeply with me, and I'm sure it resonated with a lot of fans as well, too. When I became a pro wrestler, I was working for, and I really don't talk about my personal life, so here you go, right? When I became a pro wrestler, I was, when I really took it seriously, I was living in New York, where I am now, upstate, and what happened was that I needed to make shows on the weekend, Friday and Saturday. I couldn't make shows, right? Because my job was just so, the job had the needs of the business. So I met my manager, and my manager told me, when I was a kid, I wanted to become a professional softball player, and I couldn't do that because of life. But if you want to be a pro wrestler, I'm going to go ahead and let you do this. And this is the same exact way HBK, Shawn Michaels winning the WWE Championship, his story resonated with everybody, just like my story resonated with my manager. At that time, I was an MTV kid. Yep, I could admit it, growing up in the Bronx, growing up in the hood. I was, a lot of my friends watch BET. I watch BET, but I loved VH1, and I just loved the edginess of MTV. I loved watching the spring break on MTV at that time. And if you look at the spring break on MTV, it mirrored WWE. WWE usually always finds a way to mirror pop culture. But let me ask you a question. What happens when wrestling stops resonating? Can it ever bounce back? That's something we're going to answer for you. But when you're looking at the post-attitude era of WWE, the Ruthless Aggression Era to the PG era, at that point, I think that's when I aged out of WWE, right? The PG wasn't really for me. I wasn't really a diehard fan. When I'm explaining to you how much of a diehard fan I was, you could ask my brother Junior. Me and him shared a room together when we lived in the Bronx. And what I used to do was I used to deceitfully get WWE magazines and Raw magazine and WCW magazines, and I used to cut out all the pictures, and I used to plaster the whole entire wall with the pictures. I used to go down to the gift shop run by an Asian family in New York City. That's what it was at the time. Asian people. I think they might have been Chinese, not really sure, but they would run the gift shop. I would take my only $5 that I would have, and I would go buy a Stone Cold Steve Austin poster, a picture frame to put on the wall, or I would buy an Undertaker picture frame to put on the wall, or a DX picture frame to put on the wall. Now on my wall, thinking about it now, the pictures on the wall of me in my wrestling career. But when the PG era happened, I wasn't really that much of a diehard fan, right? I think at that point, wrestling reset, and wrestling went to the PG era, right? Because if you're looking at pro wrestling, at WWE, from like the late 80s into like the early 90s, it was for kids. And then a couple years later, it became for teenagers, right? And then a couple years later, it became really for adults at the transition between Ruthless Aggression and Attitude, and then it reset and became for kids. But right now, I think WWE has figured it out, and it's for everybody, right? They went from that kid phase of the PG era with John Cena, you can't see me, to right now, we're just like, yo, Roman Reigns and like the Tribal Chief, and the way that they tell stories is different. This episode here is a love story. And if you're watching this right now and you know somebody who's not a pro wrestling fan or was a pro wrestling fan, this is the episode you need them to watch. Because what we are doing is we're going to be talking about our love for pro wrestling and what makes it so awesome. WWE tried to mature again, right? But they, like I said, they reset and they started doing things for kids. They had stupid little, superstar SmackDown shows that they would have on TV. And it was like John Cena would be like the headliner. And John Cena was like always in bright colors that I learned as a parent now that it appeals to kids, right? Kids love bright colors, right? And wrestling it just became something to watch. There were fewer compelling stories and fewer compelling moments. WWE decided to get rid of blood. There was no blood. There was no real cursing. There was no swearing. And at that time, I think that's when WWE, when they became a little corporate. I'm not upset with WWE that they became corporate because, you have to do what you have to do for your shareholders, the people that put money into your company. You have to make them happen. You have to make them happy. And a lot of us during that time, we stuck with WWE, even though we knew that it was crap. We knew that it was shit. There was one time that maybe in the last 6 years, that we were watching WWE, and it was the first 30 minutes, there's no wrestling. We turned on the television for wrestling, and we didn't get wrestling. And I think that's what the issue with WCW, Monday Night Nitro, back in the day, I never forget. I used to watch Nitro and Raw at the same exact time. When one was on commercial, I'd switch, and I switched back and forth. But I remember one day thinking about it now that they were just talking. They had the whole NWO in the ring, and granted, the NWO had a lot of people, because the NWO, if you're with the NWO, you're with the NWO for life, right? They had so many people, so many life members in the NWO. You had to give them all mic time. But you see, that's not why I watched. I want my wrestling as well, too. I don't want just talking. And that's when the time I think the WWE probably jumped the shark, right? So I wasn't watching wrestling that much. Yeah, I would still watch Monday Night Raw. I'd still be on the DVR. I would just fast forward. And what I would look forward to is I would look for some of the in-between segments to see what happened, just so I can still be a part of the story. I wasn't loving it, but I was still in it. And I think that's where WWE stopped resonating for me. This weekend, WWE is doing their Survivor Series War Games, and I want you to check back in on Friday. I'm going to do a pre-show, and then on Sunday, I'm going to do a recap after the event. So WWE Survivor Series War Games takes place this Saturday from Vancouver, British Columbia. I want you to be there. In order for you to be there, come back. But you got to hit the subscribe button. So make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss a moment and you know everything that is happening. So speaking about everything that we spoke about when it comes to me falling out of love with WWE, and I'm sure a lot of people did that as well too, but why is WWE TV must watch again? What is driving this new renaissance? Let me tell you something, like why it's just becoming better. WWE is tapping back into pop culture. They're not just living inside of their bubble. You've had appearances from people like Bad Bunny. Look at Bad Bunny right here, right? This is Bad Bunny. He's a Puerto Rican hip hop rapper star. I don't know anything what Bad Bunny is saying, but when I hear Bad Bunny get on the television and he starts talking, I'm like, yo, that's my guy right there, right? Bad Bunny's involvement, it bridges the gap between wrestling and mainstream pop culture, which brings in new fans to the WWE. Bad Bunny is one of the biggest Latin stars in the world, and his presence highlights WWE's global appeal and the ability to embrace diverse audiences. This is Bad Bunny right here at WWE Backlash a couple years ago, right? And he trained extensively for his in-ring performance. It showed that he was dedicated to the craft. We were so used to getting, the stars that got into the ring and they did like really corny things, right? So, okay, well, yeah, it's a good feel-good moment, but this guy, Bad Bunny, really went in there and he did it. His street fight against Damian Priest at Backlash 2023 in Puerto Rico, let me tell you, it was a cultural celebration. Me growing up in the Bronx, I just have goosebumps just thinking about it. The crowd was passionately singing Bad Bunny's song. And oh my God, I got the goosebumps thinking about it. Like everybody in that arena in Puerto Rico was on their feet and they were singing his song. If you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube it after you watch this. Or if you have the WWE Network on Peacock, look at that. And you just see people singing Bad Bunny's song. And it's like, yo, wrestling is cool. It's cool. If Bad Bunny could like wrestling, why can't you? I think Bad Bunny, one of the things about Bad Bunny that makes him so special when it comes to pro wrestling is that he deeply resonates with WWE's Latin fan base, making him a symbol of representation in pro wrestling. Let me tell you something. Puerto Rico has a huge legacy when it comes to pro wrestling. And I think that Bad Bunny, man, he just hit the reset button on that. Another reason why WWE is tapping into pop culture, simple, because of this one guy right here in the middle. That's Logan Paul. That's the brother of Jake Paul, the one who I thought was going to beat the brakes off of Mike Tyson a couple weeks ago, but we all know how that went down. Logan Paul brings a massive global audience to WWE, leveraging his reach as a social media star, YouTuber, and entrepreneur. It's so huge right now that you can take a YouTuber, a person that's on YouTube, and put them on WWE and he resonate. My neighbor, a couple houses down, his son is in middle school. And I remember watching WrestleMania with him and this guy named Kai Sai or whoever it was that jumped into the ring at WrestleMania to help Logan Paul. He knew exactly who that was. And I'm like, who? And for him, that resonated. That shows somebody in his age group that wrestling is cool. And as he grows up, wrestling is going to grow with him. It's going to make him a lifelong fan. Hopefully like wrestling was with me. Logan Paul, though, has proved that he's just more than a celebrity guest. Him and Bad Bunny have changed the way that we look at celebrity guests because they showcase incredible athleticism in the ring and they take pro wrestling seriously. His matches against top-tier superstars like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Ricochet, they have exceeded expectations, with many people, fans and critics like myself, we were praising his performance. I'm like, bravo. Because I know what it's like. I've been in the ring. It's not easy. Everybody think that becoming a pro wrestler is just so easy, that anybody could just get in the ring and do it. And you can't do that, right? But these guys, Bad Bunny and Logan Paul, just two of the many, took pro wrestling seriously, and look at the fan base that they've brought over to pro wrestling. It's a love fest. What's making pro wrestling cool again? What's making WWE cool again? Is WWE is shifting from rock and roll and pop to hip hop. Hip hop is hot right now. Even though my friends that know me personally know I don't listen to music, they know I listen to podcasts and I watch YouTube videos, but I don't really listen to new music, right? So that part doesn't resonate with me. But I think it's so cool that SmackDown right now has a theme by Megan Thee Stallion. I know who that is. I know them cheeks, right? And Raw is getting ready to go on Netflix in January 2025, and they're getting a theme by Travis Scott. Pro wrestling is cool. It's so cool right now. You see, for me, I always hated that I couldn't be, granted, I don't listen to hip hop that much, but I'm still a hip hop head. You ask me who's the greatest rapper of all time, I'm telling you it's Jay-Z. And I felt that at one time, as a black man, as a black boy, growing up in the city, I felt that hip hop didn't fit into pro wrestling. I remember one time I was trying to get a booking with an independent pro wrestling company, and one of the things that they specialized in was like gangster wrestling. All the wrestlers were black and came from the hood, and I wanted to be in there, and I know I didn't fit in there because, that's not the wrestling that I grew up on. But right now, the wrestling is cool. I hated groups like Crime Time. They were two black guys, wrestlers, and what they did were they were hood, right? And that didn't fit. But now, hood in wrestling fits. It's a part of the culture. It's a part of who we are. And let me tell you something. Everybody from your mother all the way down to the baby, everybody know at least one hip hop song. There's one that brings them to the floor, okay? Here's a quick story. I was working in the corporate office at Walmart, and we were riding around in the car, and the lady that was driving the car, our manager, she was an older white woman. And then she goes, "Do you guys mind if I put on some music?" And I thinking about it now, she was talking to me because I was the new person in the group and I was the only black person in the group. This girl put on some gangster hip hop shit. What she put on the radio on the radio, and she was singing it word for word. She was respectful though. She didn't say anything but the N-word or none of the curse words because we were still working. But I'm like, that's when I learned to never judge a book by its cover. This old white woman was sitting there listening to hip hop, to rap music, gangster music, saying it word for word, and I didn't even know it word for word. And I grew up in a rougher environment than she did, or at least I thought. Wrestling is cool right now because behind the scenes, it's changing, and it's changed. Triple H took creative control from Vince McMahon, and he shifted the way that wrestling felt. It was like somebody giving CPR to WWE because, granted, it's like when people get upset at Walmart. They say, "Oh, I'm never going to come back here again." I used to always say, "Yeah, okay." Oh, that's until you need milk, bread, or eggs until Black Friday, right? And there were so many times that people used to say, "Oh, I'm not going to watch WWE again." No, bruh. You're going to watch WWE again. You think you're not going to watch WWE again. You're going to watch it again. And this right here is me reaching out to everybody that said that they would never watch it again. I want you to watch it now. If you know somebody that is a pro wrestling fan, share this. You know what? Share this right now on your social media. Share it. Give this to somebody because somebody needs to understand why WWE is so cool to us. WWE being ran by Vince McMahon was like having your grandfather trying to tell you what is cool. WWE being ran by Vince McMahon is like having your mom trying to tell you what was cool. I understand that one day my son is going to look at me and go, "Dad, that's not cool no more," because the times have changed. Now with Triple H at the helm, granted, Triple H is a 50-year-old man, right? But Triple H I feel like he's open-minded enough that he allows the younger people inside of his circle so that the younger people can project those younger energies and say, "Hey, look, you know what? Maybe we need to stay a little bit away from rock and roll. All the cool kids are listening to hip hop." When you look at a TikTok video, 9 times out of 10, a TikTok video is using some kind of hip hop video. Tell me that I'm lying. I don't think I'm lying. What makes WWE cool right now is that its ability to adapt to cultural trends while staying true to its core. 100%. 100%. And I think the most important thing about pro wrestling is that they take the sports aspect of it and the entertainment aspect of it, and they meld it together and they entertain us in a new way. One of the things that I tell people in pro wrestling is that what you're watching on pro wrestling, none of it is new. It's all some kind of idea that somebody probably took from a movie, or somebody probably took from a TV show or a book, or from pro wrestling years ago. And all it is doing is adding a new spin to it. So if you're a pro wrestling fan right now, oh man, golly, let me tell you something, you are in for a treat. And if you're not a pro wrestling fan, you're going to be in for a treat now. But listen, let me tell you this. Pro wrestling isn't just a sport, and it's not just entertainment. It's an experience. It's a concert, it's a Broadway show, and it's a stunt performance all rolled into one. It's classic. It's good versus evil. It's raw. Emotion told through athleticism, and it's a story that never truly ends. Let me tell you this and open up your ears. When you watch WWE live, it's life-changing. The lights hit different. The music echoes through your chest. The energy of the crowd is electric. It's like nothing else in the world. Yeah, when you watch it at home, it's one thing, but being there, ooh, it's visceral. It's communal. It's magic. It's that moment when the entrance music hits, the pyro explodes, and the crowd loses their minds. It's seeing the kids with eyes wide open and adults feeling like kids again, and everyone in the arena is being united something bigger than themselves. There's no politics at that time. There's no nothing. It's all about what's happening in the arena. And that's what wrestling does. It connects us. It makes us laugh. It makes us cheer. It makes us cry, and it makes us jump out of our seats. It's not just about the moves in the ring. It's about the stories, the moments, and the memories. If you ask me, pro wrestling is this wild, beautiful art form that turns scripted entertainment into something real for the people who watch it. Yeah, maybe you grew up watching wrestling. Maybe you loved Hulk Hogan, The Rock, or John Cena. And maybe you fell out of love with it because life got too busy. Or maybe the product didn't just feel the same anymore. I get it. I've been there. But if you've ever been a fan, even for a moment, I want you to know this. You can fall in love with it again. On January 6, 2025, WWE is coming to Netflix, and I promise you it's going to reignite that fire in your heart. It's going to remind you why you loved pro wrestling in the first place. It'll take you back to the moments that made you cheer so loud you lost your voice, or cry tears of joy when your favorite superstar won the big one. Pro wrestling is unlike anything else. It's unpredictable, it's theatrical, and it's emotional. And above else all, it's a reminder that no matter where you're from, how old you are, or what your story is, we can all share the same emotions just for a little while. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it unforgettable. So if you've ever been a fan, or if you're even a little curious, give it a chance. Watch it live. Feel the energy. Let yourself get lost in the spectacle, because I promise you this, pro wrestling isn't just entertainment, it's life. That was my love letter. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on another episode of the Tristen Law Show. If you like what I did, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if it's your first time here, go ahead and watch another video that you've probably never watched before. My name is Tristen Law. Don't forget to check back this Friday. I'm going to be getting you ready for WWE Survivor Series War Games, and then we're going to have a recap show on Sunday. So thank you so much for joining me. My name is Tristen Law. This is the Tristen Law Show, and I'll see you next time.